and welcome back to the Cloud and Digital Human-Centered Transformation series. I am your host, Nopi Mubaiwa, from the PwC South Africa Experience Consulting team, where we are dedicated to understanding, designing, and building better human experiences. So previously, we've spoken about what it means to be a tech-enabled business and move with the times. But perhaps what's really, really important is to understand, are we actually solving for the right problem? And today I'm joined by two fantastic guests who are really going to speak about what it means to solve for the right problem and bring your client with you across the journey. I'm joined by Damion, who is the Experience Consulting Lead for South Africa, and Mark, who is our Cloud and Digital Lead for Africa. So, gents, before we kickstart the conversation, can you please give me one word to describe how you're feeling for today?
Tough one. Anticipation for me.
Love that.
Grateful from my side.
Amazing. I'm so excited for this conversation, so let's not waste any more time. And Damion, I'm actually going to start with you. And my question to you is, how can we ensure that we're solving the right problem? I mean, what does it even mean to solve for the right problem? And then following up on that, how can we ensure that we do that in such a way that it deepens our understanding of our clients' needs?
We have this phrase in experience consulting that we like to use, which is hold up the mirror. I think that phrase is a very powerful one because often what we find is a lot of the reactions are around being product-led or solution-led without really understanding the root cause or the root problem. Or as we like to phrase it, as the opportunity, really. So I think it's being able to be bold, to question assumptions, to make sure that we're doing the in-depth research to make sure that we're solving for the right thing. We have a mechanism called an opportunity statement, and that's something we establish early on, when we're going into an opportunity. And this opportunity statement is evolved whilst we do our due diligence in terms of research. So we often spend a lot of time going into the opportunity space, talking to people, whether that be the client, whether that be the end user or the customer, and making sure that we're understanding the root cause of that problem or that opportunity that we're trying to solve for. And a big part of that is about driving empathy.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. And I think, you've touched on what it means to actually be a holistic team, right? A holistic team that understands the importance of what our clients need, that understands the importance of people. And, just latching onto that, Mark, when it comes to actually building a team that's capable of being empathetic, of delivering great solutions that are human-centered, what does that look like?
No, thanks, Nopi. And some good points from Damion there as well. And I think building on that, we typically look at organizations and setting them up in a different way in order for them to be able to do that. Those business and IT teams of the past weren't set up to do that. We're very much, the IT teams were set up as order takers around what business thought were the right things. To Damien's point, now we're taking a much clearer view around what those customers actually expect. So how do we do that through journey maps? So what is that journey that we think is the right one? We've worked with the customer defining that. Now is setting up cross-functional teams, and those teams consist of both business expertise as well as technology expertise, and making sure that they have a product owner that is absolutely focused in on what Damion and the team have come up with around what needs to be built. So setting those team up, that they're absolute specialists in creating that value for the customers is so important. And then secondly, making sure that they're able to deliver that rapidly. We'll talk around that build, measure, learn process, that constant testing that Damion spoke about. You're only able to do that if you're able to rapidly release those changes out to those customers, and they're able to see that, react to that, and you can change if required. But for me, getting that in place is absolutely critical. Otherwise, you end up frustrating those customers.
And I think that's so great, the whole idea of having a team that's able to deliver those outputs. And when I joined PwC, one of the best things that I've actually learned was how the process of design thinking can actually facilitate that. And what I learned from you, Damion, working with you, is the process of continuous ideation. So I suppose my question to you then is, how can you actually guide and lead a team through the design thinking process to then deliver these client-centric solutions?
So maybe we'll start off with what design thinking is, right?
Yep.
I think that's important for the viewers that don't really know too much about it. But design thinking is a problem-solving approach. And you hear the word design and you think, oh, it must only be for designers.
Yeah.
But actually it's applicable to any problem that needs solving. And I think the ethos of design thinking is inherently very collaborative. And that's valuing the opinions and perspectives of everyone in the room, which fosters a more collaborative culture. You know, we have our BXT ethos, which is where we combine our business experience and technology hats to make sure that the solutions that are going forward are well considered. And design thinking works beautifully to bring those different hats together and to also place the human at the center, right? You know, in experience consulting, where, I mean, we prioritize the human, you know, and that surfaces quite nicely when you're combining the other hats. We have to use immersive storytelling to bring those stories to life. You know, when you're in a client space, to try and explain, you know, what we've experienced when we're talking to a customer directly is only powerful when you can tell that in a very compelling way. So I think an aspect of design thinking, immersive storytelling, a very powerful way of getting everybody aligned to that common cause or that common opportunity or problem that you're trying to solve. I think also another thing about design thinking, and maybe this is a little bit more on the fun side of life, but is the power of play. You know, the power of play is such a useful way to drive innovation, to drive bold and curious thinking. And I mean, we'll know on our engagements, you know, we often do things like immersive workshops or simulations or role playing. And that all really helps, you know, align everyone and put them in the customer's shoes, but also valuing and validating what our clients need, what the business needs, you know, what technology needs, and bringing all of those together. I think that's a few ways of how this design thinking can be used in order to create the right outcome. And then apart from those points, design thinking is non-linear. So, you know, it has what you could call phases or dimensions, but theoretically, you don't do one after the other. And that goes to your point around ideating always. You know, I know that's our ethos as a team when we think about design thinking. And it's because of the iterative nature of design thinking approach, right? You should be testing with customers from day one. Well, theoretically research from day one. And then when you go into saying, okay, cool, these things might solve, you know, the problems that you face or your needs or your aspirations, test that as well. You know, before you've gone into screen design, before you've gone into any of that. And collaborating and ideating throughout is a very powerful way of making sure that we're bringing the right solution to the forefront.
I love how you've articulated that, and, you know, the continuous ideation, the idea of play, the idea of being able to immerse our clients in different experiences. And I think what we also need to talk about then is, what do we do with clients who maybe aren't used to, you know, this way of doing things? How do we deal with clients who are maybe a little bit scared to go on that sort of agile journey with us? So Mark, I'll direct this to you. How do we ensure that clients are aligned with us?
It is a difficult one. We talk about typically enterprise agility. And again, you know, I mentioned the point around the way that we're solving problems, you know, as Damien's articulated, it's very different to the way we solved in the past. In the past, you had a very detailed requirement around what exactly was required of a mobile app or a website, etc. Those days are gone. Damion mentioned the point around it not being linear anymore. So how do you make sure that you set up an organization for what we call, or what is called, enterprise agility? How do you make sure that they direct themselves to those outcomes that they're trying to create for the customer? And that may change. That the agile term around pivoting. So if you set down a direction, you start to drive stuff out. You continuously testing that back to the client. If you find out that it's not something they want, or they've changed the requirements slightly, that you are able to pivot. That requires very different ways that you operate the organization, that you operate the change cycle. We'll also talk around moving from project, those long sort of 18-month, 2 years projects, to product. So that shift from project to product is very different. I know that I'm now creating this value to the customer. I'm going to do everything around driving that out. It's a very different view. And as it starts to create traction in the business, traction for the end customer, I'm going to feed it with more requirements, and I'm going to put more investment in. It's almost that venture capitalist approach to driving innovation rather than that sort of multi-year cycle and budgeting perspective. I mean, there's aspects to it that often our clients struggle with. That there's a less clear view around what that end state is. There's less clear view around the budget, etc. But let's be honest, often these projects weren't able to meet those end states. They weren't able to meet those budgets anyway. Now you've got rapid change delivery. Damion talked about being able to get stuff out quickly. So that the customer, the organization, our clients are able to see that value quite soon, and they're able to test that back with their end customers. So I think that cycle becomes much quicker, and the clarity around the value is much more visible on an ongoing basis, which I think is also important. Yeah.
So I really love what the two of you have said, and I'm quite sad that we don't have enough time to go into even further detail. But we've spoken about what it means to solve the right problems, the tools of trade which can help us do that. And I want to end off by asking the two of you, how do you then measure success once you've gone through that process? Let's start with you.
Should I start with that one? I think it's probably linking to some of the points I made earlier on. I think that those measures, rather than being, a set of features or budget measures, which is what organizations are typically used to reporting on, those measures are much more customer focused. So we would talk now about, understanding the number of people that are using your app, for instance, the number of people that click through the various screens, the number of people that actually bought a product on it. Those leading indicators need to be built much more into the way the organization works. You need to be able to understand the impact of those metrics and be able to build that into a response loop, that you're able to correct any changes, any negative changes, or being able to build on positive changes that you're seeing. So for me, it's making sure that there are those journey level metrics that you build into your ways of working, so that you almost intraday able to respond to what you're seeing outside there. Very different to those more leading or lagging indicators that organizations typically measure around process outcomes or financial outcomes, etc. But it's a whole different topic. But Damion,
so those are imperatives, right? Like you absolutely need them in place to see what's going well and what's not going well. I think having the mindset that design never ends is an important one as well, right?
Yeah.
Even when you put something into the market, it's going to need to update. When you've got your KPIs in place, that's going to help start identifying areas where to improve. I think involving the human as well. For example, we love hard data, but we also like to know what's driving those behaviors, what's behind those behaviors, what are the motivations, and that's where our human-centered approach, ethnography, comes into play. And then, not to harp on about kind of those hard metrics, but I'm a huge fan of intangible metrics as well. The ones that you can't actually validate through data. This is not a perfectly aligned example, but a simple one to share that one of the financial services firms globally has on their website is they measure how many times the word love is used in their reviews. So they've got a wonderful stat about, how much higher that word is mentioned in their reviews compared to the other financial service firms. Good job. That's it from me.
Love that. Thank you so much, guys. I've really, truly enjoyed this conversation. And thank you to everyone who's been watching. We've spoken about tech-enabled businesses. We've spoken about solving for the right problem. And next, we're going to be speaking about how can we achieve quality through human-centered change. I am your host, Nopi Mubaiwa, from the PwC Experience Consulting team, where we are dedicated to understanding, designing, and building better human experiences.